So today, folks, if you want to get your message out to a lot of people and want to be comfortable doing it, you should listen in because we have Leisa on the podcast. And you want to have a bigger impact. Leisa shares her experience she utilized in I was about to say podcast speaking. It's public speaking. I've said podcast one too many times. So if you're an entrepreneur that wants to be more comfortable speaking to people, I know this is also going to be applicable to virtual and webinars, even though we're going to be speaking about public speaking and that framework. So Leisa, to start us off with, where does the passion for public speaking come from?
Well, it comes from a land far away. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's something that a lot of people have a deep desire to do that. And typically, and I can say this because a lot of speakers confess things to me, it's usually when you were kids. Like there's something within that person who just has a deep calling to speak, and it's usually somewhat natural. And it also can get buried for many, many years. That calling can get pushed aside, forgotten about, ignored. And then one day they realize, wow, I've always wanted to do that. How do I do that? It's something I've always dreamed of. And that's typically my experience.
Well, I can relate to having that dream most definitely. I've luckily been blessed with not being like afraid of an audience.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest fear is being cooked by the lights. I've heard those are quite warm, and I don't deal that well with heat as a Dane. So to all the other people listening there, what would you say to the person that's actually afraid of public speaking, but they want to use public speaking to actually grow their presence?
Typically, if you have a really big fear or phobia, you usually are not considering public speaking as a form of marketing. You tend to go for other things. That's just been my experience. That's not 100% true, but I think usually if you really, really are uncomfortable, you're not going to necessarily look to do that. However, that doesn't mean that just someone who's really good at speaking or has a gift for it doesn't have fears. It's what I call the speaker's kryptonite. And those fears sound something like this. I'm still working on my talk. I've got to write a book first. I'm not really sure where I would go speak. I'm going to get started one of these days. I do want to do it, but I'm just not sure where I should go to get speaking gigs. Would anyone want me to speak on their stage? What should I talk about? Like all those little thoughts and worries is what I call speaker's kryptonite, because it stops them from moving forward. And a lot of times it's just because of uncertainty and trying something new and not having any official guidance on that. There's no one to say like we don't usually learn that in school, like how to use speaking as a marketing tool. You take a standard public speaking class, but then that's about where it ends for most people.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people that will teach you like what to say, how to speak, but there's definitely much more to it than that, and that's why I like your approach. Because one of the first things we started speaking about when we were on the first call was like where to actually look for the speaking gig. Because that's actually the first issue. That's the first thing you got to figure out.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the second issue in a way. Like if you were going to make it really linear, which it doesn't have to be. But one of the things that I find people get stuck on is if they say they're a speaker, the next question someone would ask is, oh, well, what do you speak about? And if you as the speaker don't have an answer for that, you're kind of failing before you even get started. It feels uncomfortable. You're not going to say that you're a speaker because you don't want anyone to ask you what you speak about. You're not ready, right? So I'm big into let's get you ready to say yes, so that you could say, I'm a speaker, and someone could say, great, what do you speak about? And then you could say, blah, 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 blah. I speak about the truth about how to get speaking gigs. That's actually what I really do speak about. And then they can determine if that's a fit for whatever they have in their mind.
Yeah. I guess that would be the first question. Mike, you're muted, mate. I can cut this out, but
well, there you go.
Probably won't.
He could cut that out, but he won't. The person, it's a psychological thing, right? when they say, what do you speak about? If you don't have a very defined and brief answer, it sort of takes away any sort of credibility you might have as a speaker then.
Yeah, you're not putting yourself in the best light. It's like you've probably seen people who are scared to show their website or their business card. And if you're ashamed of you have website shame or business card shame or whatever shame carrying around with you, you're not going to want anyone to ask you about it. So you're literally like pushing the opportunities away, and which is opposite of what we want to do when we're growing business. So it's like, okay, we need to get you in a place where you're ready to go. I cannot wait for people to ask me about what I speak about, because I want to share those with everyone who can benefit. And we would, of course, you'd want the same approach for your website and your business card. All that you want to be ready for all of it. But definitely with speaking, it's a little vulnerable because it's your stuff, right? So, it's like, is it good enough? Is anyone going to care? Is anyone going to like it? Am I going to look stupid? Am I going to fail? How am I going to make money? Like, we have carrying all these worries with us, but you don't know any of that until you actually get started, right? So it's unanswerable questions.
So this removes the whole try to appeal to everybody and go get speaking gigs, as opposed to deciding ahead of time what topics you're really passionate and going to practice on and know really well. Then you go out trying to find where that applies, right? This is a much better way to do it.
Absolutely. Because one of the biggest mistakes I'll hear speakers make, or newer speakers make, is they'll say, well, I don't know what the marketplace wants. And I do not think that's a great place to start, unless you're in some very fast paced changing thing. If you're talking about self-growth or personal growth or development or business development strategies, you need to start with, like, what can you offer the audience? What's that valuable, neat, cool, unique thing about you and your expertise that people are going to be like, oh, I want to work with that person? Because I work with a lot of coaches and consultants. I mean, you went to your coaching certification. Everyone learned, quote unquote, the same thing. How do you differentiate yourself? Do you work with a certain type of audience? Is it a certain type of spiritual, maybe you're Christian or new age or spiritual, or maybe you work with men or women or kids or teens, or, or engineers, right? So you need to figure out, like, who's your people? Where are they at? Don't try to be everyone, everything, everywhere, all at once, right?
And I'm really glad you said that. We've been preaching that for 5 years on this podcast. You can't be everything to everybody. It's not going to work. It
doesn't really work. Yeah. And, people, I have found that sometimes people also worry about getting on a big stage and I have to be in front of all these people. Let me tell you, you can make thousands and thousands of dollars with a small group of people too. It doesn't have to be a big, huge stage for you to make money. My very first speaking engagement as a professional speaker was back in 2013. It was, thank goodness, I had a great network of people, and I called up a gal who I thought she knows everybody. I called her. I said, hey, I've got this talk I'm doing. Do you know anyone who you think would be a good audience for that? She, thank goodness, invited me to come and speak to this small group of people. It was about 10 people. And they were all leaders in a multi-level marketing company. Great. Sounds fine. And they didn't know it was the first time I gave that talk. I think I did an okay job. I mean, was it my best? No. But what did happen is that 3 people signed up on the spot for $300. And so that's already $900 walking out the door. And then they went and signed up for many, many other workshops and spent tens of thousands of dollars just from that one presentation. So you don't have to be the best speaker in the whole wide world. It doesn't have to be the biggest stage in the whole wide world, but you do need to make sure you're speaking to the right people with the right message that's going to bring value.
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I'm curious, as you're training people to speak and to get speaking gigs, do you see more often than not, or does it just not happen, that there's a shift in who your clients are trying to reach?
It depends. When sometimes they'll come to me and they have a couple different markets. So we talk about that when we're starting to build their strategy out, of like, well, which one usually the defining answer is if they're trying to make money, quicker, then we go, okay, which one is the lowest hanging fruit? And then let's put the focus there, get out there, start making connections, start getting booked, get your experience, do the talk a few times so you feel comfortable. Then once you've started to create your, what I call the unconscious competence in that area, then it's going to be a lot more easy to go, okay, I want to tackle that other market now, which may be a different topic or a different offer, but you're not as nervous about it because you've already now done it. And so when I work with people in the Speakers Training Academy, it's really about how can we create a rinse and repeat model for you? Your talk is going to change. Your business might change. Gosh, you might completely change the whole thing. You might change who you serve. But once you know how to start looking for the gigs and create your talk, you just take it from one column to the other column and translate it over. And it's a lot easier that way.
Yeah, we're gonna like constantly learn, speaking to new people, meeting new people, what works of the offer, what doesn't work, what really resonates. So you should constantly be changing if you see improvements. That's
I think evolving,
Yeah.
you want to make,
Better
you don't want to
word.
change too many things because then you may not know what was working or what wasn't. But I think we're adults, entrepreneurs, pretty smart cookies. You can sometimes tell you're like, okay, that did not work. Or I really like that. Oh, I got a great response. Here, let me try that again. In speaking, it is tricky because it's not just one factor. There's so many factors. There's what you're bringing to the stage emotionally, psychologically, are you connecting with them intellectually, all the things that you're bringing. But then for whatever reason, they might have a different expectation. So you always want to make sure you're making the best bet as possible. Like, does this audience seem like they could benefit from what I offer, my message, from, working with me? Would they feasibly really benefit? And I think that's the key. It doesn't have to be every speaking engagement. It's just like, put yourself in front of people who you can benefit, and probably you're going to find clients. I mean, that's good odds that you're going to find clients.
Yeah.
I really like the energy of that thought process. I hadn't heard anyone say it in those words, but I've seen people do it. We try to do it. So you're getting in front of people, you think you've got something that they would really like and enjoy and would help them. But I'm going to start using the benefit word because that's much better. I already learned something today. There you go.
That's awesome.
So how would a person actually go about getting booked for a speaking gig? I learned with us talking, it was not just saying, hey, I want to speak for you. Sound good?
No, don't do that.
Yeah,
no,
we tried that. Yeah.
That's not the right approach.
No.
I actually see it happen. It even happens to me, which is, I find completely ironic. I will get, the other day I got a message in my inbox and they were like, how do I speak here? Literally, that's what it said. Hi, how do I speak here? And I'm like, is that how you communicate to people? Like, there was no context, no like, hey, I found you on XYZ. I'd love to chat with you to see if you're accepting speakers or not, or here's what I speak about. Gee, that would be information. That would be helpful information. I'm like, how do you speak here? How do you speak where? I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I have a lot of different communities. So like, what do you mean? And I could tell, like, it's probably going to be a no, sir. It's going to be a no. You cannot speak here, because why would you come to me knowing that my company is what it is? I just found that ironic. Anyway, it's about what has worked for me really, really well is developing relationships and thinking of it as you're on the same side of the table as whoever's booking you. Not, I'm trying to convince you of something that I want, but more of, tell me about your event. Tell me about what kind of speakers you're looking for, who's in your community. Let's see if this is a fit. And I think that people respond just more easily to that because they're trying to solve a problem too. They have a space. They need a speaker. They need someone who's going to provide value. Here's what they do not want. And this is the big, this is your bonus tip here. They do not want to hear anyone complain about the speaker after they're done. They don't want to hear, oh my gosh, they were horrible, they were boring. Why did you book that speaker? Because how do you know that they've heard that before? So they get very protective. They don't want to have their audience suffer. They've created this community. They're working hard to create this community. So you want to honor that anytime you're speaking, like honoring they've put in the work to bring that audience there. You're the guest on that stage, on their stage, in their home. So you need to treat it with honor and respect. That's what I find works really well.
And going into any sort of negotiation with that mindset, we're already in the best place to negotiate.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like we're 100% on the client's side. We're 100% on if they don't hire us for that gig, that's okay. It's not a fit because we're telling them what we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not going to be a win-win for anyone if you convince someone to put you on a stage that none of your clients would be in. Like, it would actually probably be one of the worst feelings ever, being a speaker to an audience who's like, who is this person? Why are they speaking to us?
Yeah, that would be
Haven't we all had that
awkward.
experience?
Ooh, sounds like we've had that issue before.
Yeah,
Not as a speaker, but as an audience member, I've been dragged into
Yeah.
meetings. I'm like, why is this person wasting our time? It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with our company.
Yeah, and that's just not a good time for anybody. It's
No.
not a good time. It's awkward. You can cut the silence with a knife. It's just horrible.
Yeah, it's,
Well, that
it's
brings another
equally as awkward walking into the wrong room. As an audience member, I remember going to like a course physically here in Denmark, and it was at a hotel, and I messed up the rooms. I sat there for an hour in the wrong room, having no clue what the guy talking about. I was like,
Oh my gosh.
yep. I had to like go up to him like, yeah, I think I got the wrong room. I'll just switch. Sounds good. Like that. Like that experience was very awkward. I don't imagine it being more fun being on the other end of it, being the speaker
No.
and having the audience be like, being the speaker, what's going on here? I shouldn't be here. Going into that, I wanted also to ask you, what would be the number one thing you would recommend for audience to go out and get booked as a speaker?
Yes. So this is something that came to me organically, thank goodness, well before I had my company Get Speaking Gigs Now. And it's something that I call having a speaker soulmate. And I'll explain what that is. It's kind of like a business strategic referral partner. You know, there's lots of different words that we'll call power partners. There's different phrases that we'll say. But in speaking, it's a little bit different because you're just focusing on speaking. You may not actually refer clients back and forth. You're just like, how do we help each other get more speaking engagements? And I had started a network back in 2013 that's now called the International Speaker Network, because I was one of those speakers who was trying to do it all by myself. Even doing it all by myself, I had massive success. I booked 83 speaking engagements my very first year as a speaker, in my local area, in person, all in person. So not only did I book them, I attended, I was the speaker. And I thought, gosh, there's got to be an easier way. I bet if we all came together, I could help people. They could help me. I knew a lot about referring and I was fine with that, but I just didn't have anyone for that in speaking. So I created a speaker network. And in that network, I met another woman who became my first speaker soulmate. Now I have a few, but she was my first one. And it's someone that you know, like, and trust. Obviously, that's kind of a no-brainer. That speaks a similar frequency as you. Like, they're playing the same game you're playing, right? You want to be you don't want to be out there hustling and the other person's just sitting there like a lump on a log, right? You got to have a similar kind of cadence. And then the third thing is really, do they speak to a similar audience, but they are not your competition? Because that makes it easier then for you to introduce each other. Because you know that if you spoke in January, they need a speaker maybe in February or March, or maybe later that year, or for their next event. Or if it's a podcast, they need a guest. You were the guest. They're not going to have you as the guest every single time, but they would like to have other guests who can speak eloquently, who are going to show up. And so that's who I align myself with. And now we teach that concept in our international speaker network. And I try to tell people, like, if you find your couple speaker soulmates, you're good. I don't cold call for speaking, and I haven't in over 8 years, 9 years now. I don't love going down the Google rabbit hole. And I don't think a lot of speakers like that either, where you're just like, where can I speak? And you type it into Google, and then you're sitting there for hours wanting to just go get a root canal instead. It's not that fun, right? That is not what speakers are put on this earth to do. No, we are put on here to like help and educate and, work with the community. So it really cuts that time down or eliminates that cold calling time.
Yeah, that's something like that's very relatable. Like I enjoy getting off a call with a person I know, like, and trust. If it's
Yeah.
something I work with for social media, or if it's more of in a business aspect and how to go out there and approach people, way more than just being like on a sales call or being on Google, sending cold emails, approaching people cold. It's so much
It's hard.
easier, like, if you have been referred by another person that has some sort of relationship than
Yeah.
it would be if you just went up to that person yourself, because this person must do good work since they're referring him.
Mhm.
That's just assumed in most cases.
Yeah, I call it rolling out the red carpet. You just roll out that red carpet for that person. They roll the red carpet out for you. And all of a sudden, everyone wins. Again, we're back to that win-win-win. Like, you want the audience to win, you want the host to win, you want the speaker to win. Of course, that makes it all the better for everybody. I'll have a good experience. And I think if you go in with that type of attitude for all of the activities when it comes to getting speaking gigs, that's really going to pay off. That's worked for me. It's been 10 years now. It still works. Even through a pandemic, even now I speak virtually pretty much more than I very rarely speak in person anymore. I mostly speak virtually. It's still the same because humans are the same.
Then we're going to stay the same.
When you speak virtually, do you stand up?
No, I don't. But a lot of people do. I have a lot of energy sitting down as well. So I don't.
We don't want to overdo it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't find that it impedes my speaking, but I know some people who really like to stand up doing it.
I'm just curious about that because standing feels so different. It's easier for me to expand my rib cage when I'm standing, but I'm 6'6", so a lot of chairs don't fit me.
There you go.
So
that's another problem. I don't have that
squished
problem.
anyway. Yeah. You don't have that problem?
No, I'm 5'4", but I could see where if you have a stand-up desk, things like that, it could create other problems. Like chairs can create a problem. Like sometimes I'll see someone go like this, they'll swivel back.
No.
If you're only listening, I'm swiveling back on my chair, or they're rocking or something like that. So that could happen as a nervous tick. And of course, on video, virtual, it's going to be way more noticeable. But if you're standing, you might have other tics, right? You might have other nervous habits that come through. You might be pacing back and forth. They're like, oh my gosh, this person is like, cannot. Whereas in person, pacing at a certain rate would be acceptable and okay because you're trying to address everyone. With virtual, you need to stay like in front of that camera so they know, oh, they're looking at me, even though you're not actually looking at them. So it's a little bit of a different techniques depending on your venue and your audience.
But we also wanted to ask, tell us about your program.
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I have a speakers training academy. It's for entrepreneurs who want to use public speaking to market their business and attract their clients. I find that a lot of times we end up doing these soul sucking activities like sales and marketing, right? Like I became an entrepreneur. What? Sales and marketing? That's not what I signed up for. And so understandable. Like it's just, but you want clean dishes. You got to do the dishes. You got to do something. Otherwise you're not going to be in business for very long. So I find that the people who really want to use speaking to attract their clients, it's a soul fulfilling way to do that. So we help them get their talk ready to rock, figure out where they're going to go speak, anything that needed to get ready to be ready, like getting their speaker sheet done, their bios, their intros. Do they have a photo shoot scheduled? I'm there to make sure that all the tasks get completed. Anything that's going to get in their way of speaking, we want to eliminate that and make sure that they have a model that they can use again and again and again. So people usually work with me for about 6 months, and then they can just use that forever. I say, I'm not like a psychotherapist. You don't need to be with me for years. Just come in, let's get y'all set up, and then you can go on your merry way and be on talks, summits, in person, virtual, podcasts. I don't know, whatever. Have your host your own events, be on video, all the things that you want to do for visibility in your business.
And we thought it's a really neat program. I want the audience to hear you explain it yourself since you created it. We haven't run across people doing this before.
Well, I found that it really is a unique model that I learned and did on my own. And then the reason I created my company, Get Speaking Gigs Now, is because all those speakers in the network that I had created kept asking me, how did you get on that stage? How did you do it? Can I just pick your brain, Leisa? Do you just have a minute? Can you just tell me, like, what should I talk about? Where should I go speak? And then how do I get people to let me get on their stages? Then how do I make money? And can you just tell me that really quick? And I'm like, well, wow. No, I can't tell you really quick. I can tell you in 6 months because there's a learning factor to it. But that's why I created my company. No one asked me, how do I become a better speaker? They just wanted to know, how do they get on the stages?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's 180 degrees from me. I started out, I wanted to learn how to communicate from the stage.
Yeah.
That's a totally different, coming from the other side, sort of.
Yeah, it's different. Well, had you been doing it before?
No, but I really didn't realize until you described it a few minutes ago. I had this big stack of dirty dishes behind me I'd never taken care of. That had to be dealt with later.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a learning curve. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in speech communication. I even taught interpersonal communication at the university I attended in my 20s. And still, when I became a speaker, I was like, wait, how do you do this to where you can get people to buy the thing and give you the money? Like, how does that work? And I spent well over $10,000 for my first speaking coach, even with all that experience. And I didn't have fear around it. I wasn't scared to be a speaker. I just was like, there's something about this in a business setting where you're actually attracting clients that I was not aware of. I'm like, how? And I'd taken tons of sales training. So it wasn't working. There was something that I didn't know about. How did that work? And so when I remember I would listen to my coach and I'd watch her do this amazing sales thing. I'm like, wait, stop, hold on. I'm trying to write down as fast as I can. I was like, well, what did you just say? What did you say? She's like, I don't remember what I just said. And because she's doing it so naturally. So we're talking about, like, has it all been rainbows and unicorns? Of course not. No, I had to learn too. And because I always say, you're not born out of the womb knowing how to sell from stage. It is not something you are born with. It is a learned skill, which the good news is anybody can learn it. But it's not also a one size fits all. It's not a generic cookie cutter thing. And that's where I so empathize and have deep compassion for the clients I work with, because they come in with all different levels of sales or sometimes zero sales experience. And there's a lot of uncertainty. Oh, I worked in corporate, but now I'm selling myself. That's uncomfortable. So we got to kind of unpack all that and get them to a point where they feel so deeply excited and connected to their offer, and they know that it's going to help other people. And so there's no apology about it. There's no resistance around it, gunkiness around it. It feels pure, it feels authentic, it feels real. And then that is what can then help them attract their ideal clients. If we're dealing with our resistance and our gunk, and we're probably going to forget to give the offer, forget to even come up with an offer, run out of time so we don't give the offer, all the things that happen when I'm out there looking at speakers.
Yeah, I can imagine the time part being that would be a thing very hard for me. like stick into a specific time because I might all of a sudden come up, oh yeah, this great new idea I never thought about before on the stage. I'll be like, we don't need this part. This was useless.
Yeah, that's where okay, so the biggest thing you can do that costs no money is practice.
Mhm.
And I think people just tend to like think, oh, I'll be fine. I'm like, no, you will not.
Nope.
You need to practice. I don't care if your cat is in the room or no one's in the room. It does not matter, because you need to let your nervous system calm down and let it embody within you. And I obviously feel very strongly about that. But now I've done it a lot of times, so I don't practice my current talk as much anymore. But when it was new to me, I practiced it too. I take the medicine that I dole out. If I create a new talk, I will practice it until I feel like, okay, it's smooth enough to where I've got it. And people often say, well, how many times do you need to practice? And I'm like, it's like how many licks to get to the Tootsie Pop. It just depends. I don't know. But you got to get it enough to where you feel like the whole slides could disappear, the electricity could go out, and you could still give your talk, no problem. And I'm not talking about memorizing it. I'm talking about embodying it. I don't mean scripts or things like that. I just mean like you got to be able to deliver to that audience the value.
Thanks for watching our content. We put it out there to help people, and we sure hope it helped you. If you're the type of person that recognizes that you need help in your business in order to increase your revenue, you should book that 30-minute call with us. 2 reasons. 1, it's free for you. And 2, it gives us a chance to get to know you a little bit. We can figure out a direction to steer you in to help you out. Maybe that's working with us. Maybe it's not. Either way, book that call and talk to us.